Today we'll be discussing a man who faced one of the most ruthless regimes of all time and changed the history of his country and the world. This great hero endured 27 years in prison for fighting against apartheid and defending racial equality in South Africa. Welcome to Hero's Journey, the channel where we bring stories of resilience and success to inspire your own heroic journey. Now let's dive into the story of Nelson Mandela. Born on July 18, 1918 in the village of Mvezo, South Africa, he was part of the Madiba clan. His father was a local chief and advisor to the monarch of the region, which allowed Mandela access to a good education from an early age. During his youth, Mandela continued his education at higher learning institutions, first at the University of Fort Hare, a center of excellence, and one of the few that offered higher education for black South Africans at the time. There, Mandela studied for a degree in arts, but was expelled in 1940 for participating in a student protest. After leaving Fort Hare, Mandela moved to Johannesburg, where he completed his education at another university. However, in 1948, one of the darkest periods in history began, directly affecting Mandela's life. Among the legacies left by European colonizers in Africa, the most brutal was South African racism. Backed by the idea of white racial superiority, the European man instituted laws that supported the apartheid regime, established in 1948 by the National Party. The regime prohibited interracial marriage, required racial registration on birth certificate, and segregated whites and blacks in schools, hospitals, parks, and other places, establishing separate locations for the two races. Racial segregation, the lack of political and civil rights, and the confinement of blacks to government-designated areas led to a series of massacres and deaths among the black population. Many men and women from the South African black community dedicated their lives to this great cause, the end of apartheid.
Demonstrations against the South African government's strict apartheid policies flare into shocking violence. At Sharpsville, an industrial township, thousands gather outside a police station in protest against new laws requiring every African to carry a pass at all times.
Nelson Mandela became one of the most notable leaders of the South African black movement. We can say that Mandela's education and experiences during his childhood and youth not only shaped him as an individual, but also laid the groundwork for his future role as an activist, leader in the fight against apartheid, and eventually as the first democratically elected black president in South Africa. Together with his companions, Mandela founded the African National Congress Youth League, which became the main political representation instrument for blacks. ANC members were persecuted, accused of conspiracy against the government. In 1960, several leaders were arrested, tortured, murdered, or sentenced. Among them was Mandela, who in 1964 was sentenced to life imprisonment. In a remarkable speech during the trial, he expressed that he had dedicated his life to the African people's struggle and was willing to die for that cause. Mandela admitted to leading the organization and defended his actions as necessary in the fight against oppression. As a result, he ended up spending 27 years in prison on Robben Island near Cape Town. And it's precisely this long period of imprisonment that we will discuss how he managed to overcome confinement and shape his character to become a hero and remain firm in his purpose. As we've seen, Mandela deeply valued education as an emancipation tool. In prison, he continued his studies and encouraged other prisoners to do the same, transforming the prison into sort of a university in some sense. Besides obtaining a law degree from the University of London, he read extensively on world politics, history, and philosophy, important for honing his skills as a leader and a negotiator. Mandela also took on a mentoring role for many young activists incarcerated with him, sharing his knowledge and experiences. He taught classes on history, politics, and economics, helping to prepare the next generation of anti-apartheid movement leaders. Despite the harsh living conditions, Mandela strove to keep the morale of other political prisoners high. He organized debates, promoted physical exercises, and established a strong sense of friendship among the detainees, essential for psychological resistance to isolation and inhuman treatment. Even behind bars, Mandela maintained an active role in the ANC political strategy. He initiated secret conversations with the South African government in the 1980s, laying the groundwork for future peace negotiations. These initial actions were crucial for the eventual dismantling of apartheid. Mandela used his time in prison to refine his vision of a free and democratic South Africa, where all races would live in harmony. He deeply reflected on the means necessary to achieve national reconciliation, developing the philosophy that would guide his presidency and the country's future. Moreover, Mandela refused 3 times to accept conditional freedom offers that required renouncing armed struggle and inspired people inside and outside South Africa to continue resisting the oppressive regime. Finally, during his time in prison, Mandela began writing his memoirs, which later formed the basis of his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. Although many of these writings were confiscated by prison guards, they served as a crucial record of his struggle and thoughts during the incarceration years.
Well, the fact that you could sit alone and think gave us a wonderful opportunity to change ourselves, your behavior. I felt quite ashamed because I became busy with politics and with law, and I forgot that the people were very kind to me.
Prison, far from breaking Nelson Mandela, forged a leader of unparalleled dignity, wisdom, and resilience. His time behind bars is a testimony to the power of the human spirit in the face of adversity and the ability to transform suffering into strength for social and political changes. After his release, Mandela led formal negotiations with the government to end apartheid and establish democratic elections. In 1994, he was elected president, becoming the country's first black leader, marking the official end of apartheid and the beginning of a new era of reconciliation and rebuilding in South Africa.
The time for the healing of the wounds has come. The moment to bridge the chasms that divide us has come. The time to build is upon us. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination.
As well as his dialogue-based approach and reconciliation as means to resolve conflicts, he received the Nobel Peace Prize. Nelson Mandela remains to this day an inspiration for leaders and individuals worldwide, symbolizing the fight for freedom, justice, and reconciliation. Did you already know Mandela's story and the events that made him a modern hero? If you enjoyed this content, then leave your like to support our work. And if you want to receive new episodes about other real-life heroes, feel free to subscribe to our channel. That's it for Hero's Journey today. I'll see you next time.